Purchasing a wheelchair is a really big decision, especially because you're probably going to have that same wheelchair for the next 5 years. There is a lot of options for custom wheelchairs, and when I got my first wheelchair, it was kind of difficult to know what options I really even needed or what would be helpful to me. And I kind of wish that I would have researched it more, because purchasing a wheelchair is a really big decision, especially because you're probably going to have that same wheelchair for the next 5 years. Typically, insurance companies in the States anyway, don't like to replace a wheelchair even if something breaks, even if it's basically becoming unusable until it's been an entire 5 years. That can be a little bit challenging.
If you do have chronic pain, probably because you realize that maybe having a wheelchair is better than everything else you've been doing to try to keep your chronic pain at bay, I would invite you to go and download my free guide. It is brand new, on some great tips on how to deal with chronic pain, especially from somebody who had one of the worst chronic pain conditions out there. I would like to pass some of that wisdom on to you. So make sure you go to rise.onefootedphoenix.com and go download your copy.
Here's a designer pair of shoes. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to cover this by your insurance at all if anything breaks on these. Have fun! You're not getting another pair for another 5 years, and you have to wear them every single day, everywhere you go. So together, we're going to consider a few questions that you should probably be asking when you're researching things to get a wheelchair, and the kind of wheelchairs that maybe could suit those needs. One of the most important questions that I had to ask myself when looking for my wheelchair that I have now was, can I lift my chair in and out of my vehicle by myself? And while I hadn't learned specifically how to do that safely yet at the time, it was still important for me to be able to lift that thing. Because sometimes wheelchairs can be super heavy and they're kind of big and cumbersome, especially if you only have one good leg to rely on. Or if you're in a situation where you have chronic pain, your body might not handle trying to lift something super heavy. So that's also a consideration to put into play here. Depending on the severity of your chronic pain, you might also realize that you need a different vehicle to be able to get your wheelchair in and out of, or you might just need more space to be able to take your wheelchair with you places. If you did say that having a lightweight wheelchair is important to you because of your needs and the need to be more independent on your own, or if you plan to drive somewhere and you might be the only person in the car, then yeah, having a custom lightweight wheelchair might be super important for you to be able to have your independence. Unfortunately, sometimes insurance companies get a little squirrely about paying for a lightweight wheelchair because the materials to make them can be fairly expensive. But the advantage to having a custom lightweight wheelchair is the fact that it's custom. It's going to be fitted to you, and it's probably going to be a whole lot more comfortable than perhaps a standard issue wheelchair, or not having a wheelchair at all, which was pretty much the case for me. The standard issue wheelchair that I had before my amputation, it wasn't that great, and it didn't fit in most of the places. Even within the hospital room, it was just really big and cumbersome, so I didn't use it much after my amputation, and at home, it didn't fit through most of the doorways in my house. So that's also something to consider. You know, if you're going to need to use this wheelchair at home, if you're going to need to use it basically everywhere you go out and about, you might want something that can work better with your house. So one of the first options that you're probably going to choose when you choose to get a lightweight wheelchair is the fact that you'll have to choose if you want a folding frame or if you want more of a rigid frame. There are advantages and disadvantages to having both of those. The advantages to having a folding frame is that it is better for other people, typically if you need to ride in other people's cars or things like that, to be able to fit your wheelchair inside of many different kinds of vehicles, more than just fitting your wheelchair in your vehicle. This is because it can be folded up in half, and my wheelchair right now is a quickie folding frame wheelchair. That means that the little seat pad can come off and you pull the strap and it folds up really nicely and typically fits in most people's cars, which is also really good because I can't drive at night past maybe about like 2 or 3 in the afternoon most of the time, just simply because of the chronic pain and the extreme phantom pain. So a lot of the time, yes, I do have my wheelchair, and a lot of the time when I'm out doing something social, I won't be able to drive simply because of people's work schedules that don't necessarily always align with what my body schedule is. But having a rigid frame chair can be better if you need to lift that chair in and out of the vehicle, especially if you want to just stick your wheelchair on the passenger seat. So I see some people that have more of like a paralysis type condition prefer the non-folding frame to having a folding frame chair. So let's talk about what happens if you have some sort of disability and you can get a manual wheelchair, but you feel like you might have issues with propelling it on your own, and you don't really want to be relying on having somebody push you in your wheelchair all the time. So there is options called a push assist system. This is something that typically attaches to your wheelchair or even the wheels of your wheelchair to allow you to not have to push so hard or so much. It can help with going up and down hills. It can also help with just not wrecking your shoulders, especially if you're super young like me. I was able to get my insurance to pay for my push assist system that I have now. However, I am young, and so it was easier to get the insurance to pay for it for me being young, and reasoning with the insurance of like, hey, guys, this is cheaper to pay for this system than it is for you to pay for my shoulder surgery when I wreck my shoulders. Especially because it was becoming pretty clear at that point that I was going to need my chair fairly often, and that I didn't know how much I would be in or out of my prosthetic at that point. So with it being my first wheelchair right after my amputation, it was very clear that I was going to have these prolonged periods probably of being in my wheelchair. Little did I know that a few years later, it would be, yeah, being in my wheelchair is kind of the norm now, and being in my prosthetic is more of the exception, unfortunately. And even though my life is like that, and, you know, I wish that I could wear my prosthetic more, obviously, because it's just easier when you can walk places sometimes, I don't really regret doing my amputation. I think that I have less pain than I did before, and in that regard, like, yeah, amputating my leg was a great thing. And I also suffer a lot less from the effects of complex regional pain syndrome. So the current system that I have for my push assist system is called the SMOB 1. I have done a video on this already, so I probably won't go into like a ton of detail about it, but if you would like to watch that video, it'll be down in the description down below after you watch this one. Will tell you though that the one thing I definitely don't like about the SMOB system is the fact that it has disconnected from the remote before on me, and I've been like in the middle of nowhere. So when that happens and I'm like a mile down the paved trail, I don't know what to do, you know? Like I love to drive around in my city, and I love to be able to go on paved trails. I love to be able to enjoy the local duck ponds and things like that. But it's scary that when I take this system, I could get like stranded way out there and not be able to reset my system, which has happened a few times. And it's made me glad that I have the fold down handles on my wheelchair, because there have been a few times where like my mom or my dad has been with me and they've had to push me back like to the car. And yeah, so I would say that that probably is kind of a fatal design flaw in the SMOB 1. And there is an easy fix for this. Just make sure that you carry a little tool on you, like always have it in like your wheelchair bag or your bag with your medications and things like that, that has multiple sizes of Allen wrenches on it. With an Allen wrench, you are able to open up the side panel on the remote and just reset the entire system. You may have to also have the app on your phone to be able to reset the system. That has happened to me a few times. And yes, it's a pain to tinker with if you get stuck in the middle of somewhere and have to, basically reset this entire system. But once you get it reset, it typically won't give you any more issues for the rest of the day. I will also say that there are some other options for push assist systems that allow you to lift your casters up so that you can go across more terrain than maybe you could with the other systems. I have been looking at the Dragonfly system probably for kind of just the next time that I get a wheelchair, or if I'm able to get another push assist system covered by insurance eventually, that's probably what I want to do, because that can go across sand and grass and like so many other things. It's really cool. And being so young, I've found in many situations, like I'll go to like a fair or I'll go to like a farmer's market and it'll pretty much be like all grass. And so it's really nice if I could have something that would be able to still propel me through that kind of a situation, because in those very like few instances, I can't really push myself very well, or I end up having to totally wheelie through this like super tall grass and it's not very comfortable,
If you are in a situation where it would be difficult for you to push a wheelchair at all, that may be a situation where you do need an electric wheelchair, which they do make electric wheelchairs that are fairly lightweight, but that is a whole different domain that I don't really deal with a whole lot. I do, however, wish that I would have gotten maybe a better cushion than just going with the one that came with my wheelchair, but it was already so expensive to get my wheelchair in the first place. I was kind of like in shock at how much it costs just to be able to move around. Finally, when you are getting your chair, I do think that it's important that you make sure you get the proper fit with your representative or the person that's helping you to order your wheelchair, especially if you're going through insurance. But even if you don't go through insurance and you're just getting a custom fitted wheelchair, make sure you got the right fit, because, this is basically gonna be your legs for the next 5 years. So you want to make sure it's going to be comfortable for you. You want to make sure that, it's your style. So, definitely do the best you can to try out different wheelchairs. You should take as much time as you want to try out those different wheelchairs. I get it. It's a big purchase and a big decision to make. If you're an amputee, you might even be able to get attachments like I have on my chair that keeps my nubbin from being down and from having more phantom pain and swelling and stuff when I'm not wearing my prosthetic, which is also pretty useful. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see another One-Footed Phoenix video all about how having a wheelchair is not the end of your story, then you can click over here, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching!